This is 17-year-old Denis Lazavik, the man they gave a 0% chance of winning the Champions Chess Tour Finals 2023. He can't compete with the big guns, not Denis the Menace. Well, fast forward to this Title Tuesday game, 19th of March, early tournament, and he's defying the odds. Competing here with Magnus Carlsen. What an incredible game this is. So Denis opens with d4. It's speed chess. It's online. It's fast and furious. Knight f6 played. c4, g6 from Magnus. Denis goes for this fianchetto variation. What's Magnus got in mind? A Grunfeld? Or go for this and we see a King's Indian? Well, no. c6 played. Bishop g2. Denis, of course, singing at the top of his lungs in his best Russian-Italian accent, as the top pros do. And now d5 from Magnus. It's a neo-Grunfeld system. Knight f3. Bishop g7. Both players castle and now takes on d5 main move, or queen b3, or pawn b3, but queen a4. Denis with a complete show of disrespect for the world number one, playing a random move, but okay, it covers the pawn here. Now Magnus responds well, developing, and after takes on d5, he chucks in a Zwischenzug, an in-between move right before recapturing. The queen retreats, and now in true Magnus style, does he take with this knight, the main move, so that this knight keeps an eye on the e4 break? No. He takes with this knight. These knights getting kicked all over the board now after e4, and white controls the centre. A phalanx of pawns there controlling key squares. Magnus is worse. Knight c3, and now we're not going to explore takes on d4, which could be played by the bishop, right? Not the queen, unless you're going for the Botez gambit, because after bishop g4 we see the line in a moment. Rook d1 also inserted. And Magnus now voluntarily gives up his bishop pair to get control over d4 here, and he plays a move of bishop takes on d4. This is riskier than wearing your favourite Converses to a FIDE rated event. Poor Anna here, €100 fine for wearing these ones at the 2023 Rapid and Blitz tournament in Kazakhstan. And yet Ali Reza rocking on with these completely outrageously awesome trainers that he wore to the St. Louis Chess Club. Who knows where we stand? We all need to buy a pair of those. Now, the bishop is in a deadly pin. If you try and go bishop e3 immediately, exploit it, well, e5 comes. So here, e5 played by Denis, good move, and now Magnus finds this way to support the bishop of knight e6. And if white goes bishop e3, it's not so precise. c5 comes and you sort of unravel as black, right? You get away with it. Eventually the queen moves and you pressure e5, even though there's a mass liquidation on d4. But Denis comes up with a cracker. Bishop to g4, attacking the knight, which is defending the bishop, and if you try and defend it with, say, queen d7, well, now you can take, shatter the pawns, and this time after bishop e3, c5, knight b5 coming in a minute, white's doing great here, because this pawn isn't dropping like in some of the other lines. All quite complicated stuff. So after bishop g4, Magnus comes up with the move, and truly it's just a goat move, right? I would not find this in a month of Sundays. He finds the excellent knight to d7, and the point being, if you take the bishop, again we've got the Zwischenzug, the in-betweener move, the intermezzo of knight c5. Double attack here. Now you might be thinking, well, aha, a take with check, winning another pawn. But then after the queen moves, you've now helped the rook converge on f2 with the bishop, check, king goes, and now the queen can slide from the rook's attack. support this rook. This one can't actually be taken, defended backwardly. Very, very complicated game, right? And coming back here, if you don't take the pawn, immediately move the queen, well, now you get to take with the knight, support the bishop. Crazy tactics. So this is what happens if you take the knight here. Therefore, Denis goes knight e2. Bishop h6, a superior move, but we'll run with the game. Now Magnus goes knight e to c5. He escapes the pressure here, picks up a tempo on the queen, which moves, and now he takes another pawn. He's picked up the 2 white central pawns. Again, there's big pressure, but it just isn't quite working. You want to go b4, remove the defender of this knight, and then you pick it up with the bishop. But now you drop a rook in the corner. You can't quite get there. So that's why we see bishop h6 attacking Magnus's rook. And now he could move the rook. It gets very complicated. We'll run with the game. Magnus goes bishop d6, looking to batten down the hatches, right? Weathering the storm here. And now when we get b4, Denis not immediately taking the exchange. Knight a6, we see this exchange on d7 because it allows Denis to threaten a checkmate but without allowing knight f6. But he has now given his bishops. Such a complex game. We're going to keep going. Magnus goes f6 to block out the mate threat. Finally, the exchange is taken. King recaptures and rook a b1 supports this pawn, which was attacked twice here. Knight c7 from Magnus, good move, eyeing all of these light squares here, and also after queen b3 supporting queen e6. And how about this? Betty the black queen, desperate for friends, wants to play with Wendy, says hang out with me. Wendy's like, nah, will you go away, Betty? Please, she begs for it. Come on, I need someone to hang out with. Society demands it. Go away, please, come on, Wendy. Will you stop it, Betty? It's getting infuriating. Betty won't bugger off. She's a nightmare. Wendy slides away one more time, threatens a restraining order. Finally, Betty gets the message.
Nobody wants to play with me.
Magnus Carlsen does not repeat the position here and goes pawn a5. But this is risky business. It's up there with wearing those Converses to a chess tournament, right? Because after captures, rook captures, you're allowing the white queen to crash through on b7. Now Denis starts with knight d4 here and Magnus goes wrong. He's normally so good at feeling the right move. You know, the order of the day is to go forward here with queen g4. And after takes, then there's rook d5, and there's pressure here, and there's pressure here if the knight moves, and there's c5 coming potentially, or bishop joining from e5. It's quite dangerous. Black actually better, but Magnus misses it, meekly retreats. The guy loves an endgame. That's what he goes for here, but it's not the best because white's got huge pressure. There's problems with the king and these pieces here. Now, if you take immediately on a2, computer's favourite move, then there's this tactic. Bishop captures, you land the check, you're a knight ahead, even though black's got a couple pawns. It's difficult to hold, but what we see in the game is c5 played first, the knight retreats, now Magnus takes this pawn here, and there's a tactic in the position. Do pause if you want to test your skills, and as always, don't forget to smash that dislike button if you're enjoying. Never subscribe to the channel and give me plenty of crap in the comments. Always hugely appreciated. Sorry, I can't always keep a straight face. Now, the move played is rook takes on d6. Well done if you found it. Pawn recaptures here and rook takes on c7. And Denis has emerged a piece up for 2 pawns, right? Yes, they're connected, but you just can't get them rumbling, or rook takes. So Magnus goes h5. This one was pressured, of course. King g2, king e8 played. Knight c1 hits the rook, also trying to enter the game. So that's why rook d2 stops some key knight jumps. But Denis bringing the king around to support the knight re-entering. King d8 hits the rook. Denis spots it. What a player. Pawn f5, king e3. Magnus notices that his rook's under fire. You'd be surprised how many of us wouldn't notice that stuff. Low so on time right, but these guys too good. Knight d3, king e8, rook moves again, and after king d7 we see this pawn dropping. Very tough to hold it together. c4 of course, explosive counterplay move, but Denis finds this one, double attack on the rook and pawn. And here we see a check played, because if you try and stay with the pawn, well, there's different good moves, but king d2 works fine, rook goes, pawn's dropping. Okay, we won't go down this line, it's similar to the game. What we see played is check, the king goes this way to stay with the c pawn, Magnus goes, pawn drops. Yes, Magnus gets a couple pawns, but so does Denis. It's ominous. The black king is cut. The knight's overpowered. Here comes the king, and knight defending like an absolute stallion here. Everything's safe, battened down. The g pawn's just going to slowly run. You check, you pick up loads of tempos, loads of time on the clock. Not a difficult win for players of this caliber. So here, Magnus resigned the game. Really great game by Denis. It could have had a repetition when the queens didn't want to play with each other. Magnus played on, fair enough, but Denis punished him for it. Hope you enjoyed, and for another stunner by a teenager, have a look at the video on screen now. One of my favourite games of the last month or so. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you soon.